Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to calculate a business valuation using this cool calculator here that helps you find what your business might be worth. So, of course, it depends on the type of business and ultimately who's buying the business. But this will give you a rough idea based on some different types of businesses and models, what your business might be worth. So, a lot of businesses are valued off their valuation, and that valuation number is determined by different things like the type of your business, what your revenue or your is. So, what this calculator aims to do is try and give you a rough estimate of what that might be, and you can play around with it. So, let's just hop into it. I'll show you how it works here. So, here you can choose what type of business you have here, and this will help you get a rough valuation for your business. But let's just use a quick example. We're going to use a software subscription business. And let's say this business you want to value has $10,000 in monthly revenue. And maybe 7,000 of that is monthly net profit. So as simple as that, you can hit calculate valuation and it's going to give you just a rough estimate off the bat for this sort of business. This would be 70% margin. You're looking at about $600,000 if you have 7,000 monthly net profit. And that is at an estimated revenue multiple of 5x. So, of course, based on the type of business, some businesses are going to be a higher multiple, some are going to be a lower multiple. If the business is automated, hands off, you're going to be looking at a much higher multiple. If it takes more day-to-day work, it's going to be a lower multiple. So, cool thing about this calculator is you can play around with that. Some calculators are just made for one sort of business. This kind of encompasses a broad array of businesses, so you can play around with it and see what works. So at a 5x multiple, you're looking at 600,000. But let's say maybe your business is more hands-on, it takes more updates, it's a little bit more involved day to day. Maybe you'll get a 3x multiple for that. So in that case, you would have a $360,000 valuation if you're making $7,000 a month based on that. So you can also put in your expected growth rate, and this will help determine your valuation as well. If you're growing a lot, that's going to be a higher valuation. So let's say you're growing 5% month over month, which is quite a bit. This calculator is going to try and account for that. If you have a high growth rate, it's going to be a higher multiple. So this is suggesting if 5% growth rate is a pretty huge growth rate, so it's going to give you a higher multiple here. This is saying if you're able to get a 9x multiple, which is pretty large, if you're going 5% and it's a very hands-off business, this is expected to be a large business in not too long if that growth rate keeps up. So you can play around with this based on your multiple, see what similar businesses multiples are selling for, and you can get an idea for that. And there's a couple different valuation methods based on your business. There's a simple revenue multiple, just based on the revenue. There's more the SDE multiple, which is more for owner operated. Maybe you have an HVAC business or something that really involves you as an owner. This takes out some of those owner salary and some of those operating costs for a business. You also have a EBITDA multiple. So this shows you this can be larger businesses. It takes into account depreciation, amortization, if you have some of those things going. So more for larger businesses there. And then discounted cash flow. This is another valuation metric that a lot of finance accounting people will use. So you can look at all these different multiples and valuation methods to get a gauge of what might be best for yours. But another cool thing about this calculator is that it has some specific different business calculators here. You can actually choose if the business you're trying to calculate is listed here. It's more specific for if you have a dental practice, you can do that, a medical practice, an HVAC business calculator. So it has specific calculators based on the business that you're trying to calculate, which is cool. But yeah, we just did some simple revenue and profit growth rate, but you can get more advanced with it. For example, if you have an owner salary, you can put that in, say owner salary is getting, in this case, it's going to be monthly, so $1,000 a month. Any other operating expenses, you can put this in here. So you could say, let's say there's another 2,000 of operating expenses. You can put that in. Any assets, maybe your business has some assets, vehicle, anything, could even be a website domain name. Like, what are those assets worth? You can add that in here, and that's going to add it to the value of your business here. Any liabilities, if you have any debt, loan, mortgages, you can add those in here. So you can put all these parameters in. These are optional, but if you have some of those parameters, you can add them in to really dial in what your business might be worth here, and it will add it into your estimated business value. So again, one thing to keep in mind is it's a suggested multiple. It's really going to depend on the industry you're in, the type of business, how hands-on or hands-off that business is. That's really going to determine what your multiple is. Really, it is industry specific. So there's not just one calculator that's going to tell you this is how much your business is worth. You really need to see what people are buying and selling businesses for in your specific industry and business type. But this is a cool tool just to play around with to get a rough idea and see different multiples. What would this business be worth? Different valuation methods. So you can at least have a starting point, a gauge in order to start to be your business and get an idea for what it's worth. So yeah, it's a cool little tool to play around with. Pretty helpful and interesting if you're looking at valuing your business. And it's just a free calculator at .com or .xyz, excuse me. So that link will be in the description if you want to check it out. If you have any questions about that, feel free to drop them. But yeah, check it out and hopefully it'll be useful for you. And thanks for watching.